Hello, members of the vinyl community. Tony P coming at you from La Casa de Perla, the basement, La Hacienda. The queen is upstairs doing queenly things. She's making sure we have some money at the end of the month, paying bills. Usually we have more month at the end of our money. But he's retired, and well, come si dice in italiano, sono pensione. I'm retired. Got my Led Zepp shirt on today. Haven't worn it for a while. I don't usually wear stuff like this. I should have worn my Linda Ronstadt shirt, but I didn't. I have it draped over in the couch that I keep her. That was from Dawn, the old goat. It seems the purpose of this video is talk a little bit about people who have since left this earth, primarily J.D. Souther. Talk a little bit about his relationship with Linda Ronstadt musically. I don't know much romantically. They haven't let me in on any of that stuff. She did date him for a while. She had a long list of boyfriends that she didn't, get married. She didn't last long with a lot of them. But, I think she was a very strong woman. That was the reason why she wanted things done her way. And hey, God bless her. She knew what she wanted to do. So J.D. Souther passing away. Mutombo passing away, great basketball player. Chris Christopherson passing away. Pete Rose, 4,250 some hits. Google it, you can tell me. Fantastic ball player. What Charlie Hustle. No one played baseball as hard as that man did. Yeah, he got in a little bit of trouble with gambling and didn't make it to the Hall of Fame. That's what was keeping him out of the Hall of Fame. But in my humble personal opinion, I think other players have done worse. I don't know. Maybe you could disagree with it. That's fine. I don't care. But I think they should have restated him because there are other players who were gambling. I shall not name names. LA Dodgers. But I shall not name names. But, whatever happened about that. But anyway, let's just feel bad about everybody passing away at this time. And, sort of puts things in perspective for me. I got more sand in the bottom of my hourglass than I do at the top. So, you start thinking about those things. And sometimes you get a little bit melancholy about it. But hey, such is life. J.D. Souther. Who was he? Well, you're born in Detroit, Michigan, raised in Texas, goes to L.A. With a band. Were they called John David Souther and the Critters? I think they were. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure you can. He got into that L.A. scene. Got to be good friends with Glenn Frey. They were in the band Long Branch Penny Whistle. Glenn Frey was in there. J.D. Souther was in there. Ry Cooder. Burton was in there. Who else was in there? Somebody else. I can't remember. But Long Branch Penny Whistle, they even had an album out. I looked it up on Discogs. If you got that album, it's worth a couple of shekels. If you have an OG. But they opened, they played at the Troubadour. And the Troubadour was the center of the hub of this music that was coming out of L.A., that country folk rock music, that L.A., I call it the L.A. sound. You can call it whatever the hell you want, I don't care. But it was that conglomeration, of Glenn Frey, of Joni Mitchell being there, of the Mamas and the Papas being there. It was just a place to be. And Linda Ronstadt sang on open mic night. Long Branch Penny Whistle did. One night at the Troubadour after playing his set and Linda Ronstadt singing her set, he decided to walk up to her and he said this, "I think you should make me dinner." And she said, "Absolutely." She gave him her number. They made arrangements. He went over to her place and she made him a peanut butter sandwich. That is awesome. The next night he calls her and says, "Hey, I think you should move in with me." And they go to that Laurel Canyon scene. Think of John David Souther, the prolific writer that he was, and Linda Ronstadt with that voice. What a power couple that would have been had they stayed. Huh? Think of the songs. I mean, well, she did the songs anyway, but still. Who was in that neighborhood but, Glenn Frey, Jackson Browne. And, it's those guys, that area where they penned those songs. And what I understood was, when I was doing some research about this, most of the rehearsals were done at John David Souther's and Linda Ronstadt's bungalow because her living room was bigger and they could bring the equipment in. As a matter of fact, they tell a story. She came back from the grocery store, I guess, and they were putting the finishing touches to Witchy Woman. Wouldn't that be awesome? Right there. But that was the scene of LA at that time. And it was Jackson Browne, I think, who introduces J.D. Souther to David Giffens, the owner, I guess, of the label Asylum, which eventually Linda Ronstadt would go to also. And when he goes to see John David Souther goes to see David Giffens, he played two of his best songs for him. And Giffens said, "Go make a record." And he was signed. And that's the first album, John David Souther. Good album. Looks very sad there, doesn't he? That's a good album. Music, a lot of music penned by Glenn Frey. The fast one, Glenn Frey is on that one. J.D. Souther and Glenn Frey, Jesus in 3/4 time. J.D. Souther and Ned Donahue, some people call it music. So here you have an album of John David Souther's writings. Out to Sea, Lullaby. Such a wonderful, wonderful album. That's his first album. And, what's really funny, before he goes solo like this, even the Eagles asked John David Souther to join them, and he wanted a solo career. He realized what they had was special, and he didn't want to disturb that. His second album was John David Souther, Black Rose. Now this is a fantastic album. What's on here that always reminds me is Faithless Love. And, we'll see that Linda Ronstadt, and I'll show you the influence that John David had on her. Black Rose is a beautiful song. Silver Blue, that's another song of Linda Ronstadt. I think she did that one in Prisoner in Disguise. We'll talk about that too when we get to it here. This is, of course, 1976. 76 was a good year for me. 76, I graduated in college, and I married the Queen. So, there you have it. A lot of good things happened in 1976. But I love the album cover, Black Rose. I think that was his idea. This, of course, is also produced by Peter Asher. Peter Asher also produces who else? Linda Ronstadt. So, see, that's that area, the time of the music. But probably his biggest album was, of course, the song You're Only Lonely, in the album You're Only Lonely. This is a promotional copy. Woohoo! That I purchased. Of course, on here, White Rhythm and Blues. Who else would have done that song? But what's also funny on here is he has Trouble in Paradise. And if you go back to when he was with Souther, Hillman, and Fury, that band, their last album was called You Got It, Trouble in Paradise. But if you go back to some of his albums, some of Linda Ronstadt's albums, I'm sorry, and see the effect. I think this is 71, 72, 73, somewhere right around there. Don't Cry Now. He helps produce this for. This is the album I think that she realizes her voice. She has Desperados on this too, so she helps the Eagles out. See the influence of one another. As a matter of fact, this becomes a big hit for her and pushes the Eagles right along too. Okay, so the influence. J.D. Souther on that one. Linda Ronstadt. J.D. Souther, Glenn Frey. Now, of course, we know that Glenn Frey and Don Henley and Meisner, that was her backup band, become the Eagles. I understand that. John Boylan, Another Boyfriend. But she sings Crazy Arms, the Patsy Cline song. John David sings harmony on this one. Okay, just such wonderful, music. I feel bad that people don't know about this. Randy Meisner, Don Henley, Glenn Frey on Rescue Me, which sometimes I wonder why that was on the album. That was done by Fontana Bass, I think. But look at that face. Oh, let's another one. Prisoner in Disguise. He does. Where are you? Prisoner in Disguise. Dumbass. Prisoner in Disguise. He sings harmony with her. A little story about this album. I had this on 8-track. Did my student teaching in '75. I used to always play this going home. What a wonderful album. Silver Blue. J.D. Souther's on this one. But she is also not credited sometimes for the song by Dolly Parton on this album, which of course was made famous in The Bodyguard with Whitney Houston. I Will Always Love You. She does that on this album. But John David Souther, what beautiful songs written by him. Faithless Love on this one. Lowell George is also, she does one of Lowell George's songs on here, Willin'. And she had a little tryst with Lowell George. Unfortunately, she didn't know he was married. And his wife showed up at her house. Another influenced album back in the USA. Living in the USA, I'm sorry. She does White Rhythm and Blues on this one. I'll tell you what, what's nice about doing some of these, I'm going to end up playing all these albums again now since I got them all out. But what a wonderful picture. I have 3 copies of this. I have one that's a picture disc and one that's the European done in Britain. Good stuff. Her album Get Closer. I'm sorry, it's not upside down, but the back is upside down. If you fold it out, of course, you see the whole thing. But I Knew You Win is gone here. Love that song. Sometimes You Just Can't Win. Another song by, J.D. Souther. Little side note. Early on, he wanted to be known as John David Souther. And that was a lot, I guess, to put on an album. And one day he was reading a book, and then he came across Johann Sebastian Bach. And Johann Sebastian Bach went by J.S. Bach. Not J.S. Bach, J.S. Bach. And John David Souther thought, hey, if it's good enough for Bach, it's good enough for me. So he went by J.D. Souther. No dots. But what a time period, huh? What talent. Just to be around that Laurel Canyon at that time. You know, the birds were there, mamas and papas. You know, it was just wild. But hey, that's all I got. J.D. Souther, God bless you. May you rest in peace. Chris Christopherson, too. Maybe I'll do something about Chris Christopherson. I'm not a completist. I don't have the money to be a completist. But I do have a few of his records. Rest in peace, Batumbo. Rest in peace, Charlie Hustle, Pete Rose. Tony P, coming at you from La Casa de Perla, the basement. Ciao, ciao. May all your records be flat. May your stylus run true. Whoop-de-doo for your Subaru. Ciao.